Okay, so for today's Alice Task Force, we have Olivia Metz joining us from the Metz Group, and she's going to talk to us a bit about the CityLink project. So Olivia, short introduction, but the floor is yours, and you should be able to share your screen. Let me know if there's any problem with that.
Okay, thank you. Let me see. That's not the one. Okay. Do you see a bus?
Do.
Okay. Now I can't really see you guys, so
Okay,
so let me know if I'm missing anything.
I'll keep an eye on the chat.
Okay. So my name is Olivia Metz with the Metz Group. I know some of you, but not all of you. So I do consulting in the area and across the United States with a variety of municipalities, economic development organizations, and right now, one of the projects that I'm working on in coordination with JUB engineers is a strategic plan for CityLink, CityLink North specifically. And so we've been undergoing this project for quite some time, since like 2021, and COVID kind of put a kink in things. So the engagement and trying to get people together has been kind of tough. But let me see if I can. So the strategic service plan is really, the goal is to integrate the more of a multimodal mobility that will increase the accessibility to all individuals across Kootenai County. And really what we're looking at is how do we redesign if needed. We're really analyzing the route, the network as itself, as well as bus stop locations. And in order to improve service, the headway, meaning, some of the routes are an hour long. So how do we make those routes more efficient? And how do we cover those areas that really are needed? So for example, right now, Rathdrum does not have service. And also, how do we improve equity among seniors, people with disabilities, low income, those people that really require ridership.
Mhm.
So our project approach is really, it's more data driven. And so I will get into more of the data because I think it will be interesting for you all to see it all visually. And then I won't get into really the details, but basically we're looking at the data, we're looking at the system, and we're working with all of the planning and engineering departments of all the cities, as well as our next step is to meet with employers and service providers such as yourself. So this is actually a really good kind of connectivity into the next phase of our project. So basically, transit markets across the United States, they're so different. Portland's different than obviously Kootenai County. So how do we look at it from a perspective of such a small area? So we look at people, population, diversity, demographics, the destination, and the design of the network. And so to kind of put it in, I'm flying through these because these are really this doesn't really make a lot of sense for you guys. I just really want to kind of get to the maps. So density, we're looking at population density, employment density, mix of the mixed use where retail and services are located, and the pedestrian scale grid. So basically, a quarter mile is really what is needed for a really good design to meet the demands of neighborhoods and employment destinations. And demographics, we look at low vehicle ownership, we look at 0 to 1 car households and low income households. So with that, these are the ABC routes. Again, we're just looking at the north route. The south goes down to Plummer and Worley. So really, we're looking at these current routes and then looking at all of the bus stops along the way. And next month, we're going to be having a ride along with all of the municipalities as well as service providers. So you will be maybe this could be a good group to be on those ride-alongs to see what those bus stops look like, what's the safety around them, are they in good locations, do they make sense from an employment destination, from a service destination? So in looking at the current population, you can see that the network really does kind of hit most of the populated areas. Obviously, there's some sprawl over here to the west and a little bit to the east and then to the north, but it overall hits the main population areas, of course, not Rathdrum, as I mentioned. And this is the population in 2040. So you can see it kind of pops a little bit more on the Rathdrum Prairie, and then to the west, of course, that the Cortera. We looked at all of the new developments, basically, that we knew were going to be online, and how the major developments that would really increase population. So we projected out into 2040. And it doesn't change too much on the route line, but I will show you where employment is currently. It really hits the employment areas currently. And of course, downtown Coeur d'Alene, the core, and then the hospital really stands out. And then over by the workforce training centers over here, and then Post Falls kind of core, and then up in Hayden. And then 2040, again, it still kind of hits these areas, except with the exception of the Workforce Training Center Riverbend area. That there used to be a route out there, and they're analyzing it currently. That's part of the analysis, is to see whether we can or should get continue service or expand service out there again. And then looking at mixed use, obviously it really hits hard in these core areas. So, and then in 2040, it still does. And then looking at it from the pedestrian scale blocks, like I mentioned, that quarter-mile buffer, it really does kind of, I mean, you have the downtown cores is really where all of the pedestrian walkways are, but we do want to make sure moving forward, that's why we included the planning departments, is when future development comes online, when future neighborhoods come online, we want to make sure that it's transit oriented. So looking at low income households, this is where it gets interesting, and especially when we get into low vehicle ownership, and then we're going to put all of these together and create a composite index, and you'll see what that looks like put all together. But of course, the like East Sherman area is where the more of the low income households reside, and then but the existing transit system does a pretty good job of hitting those low income households, with the exception of specifically out East Sherman there. And then again, low vehicle ownership as well. These tend to be not only low income, but also seniors. And so we want to make sure that we're hitting those population groups. So putting all of that together, we come up with a composite index, and the system currently as it exists does a pretty good job of hitting the main areas of focus, all of those population, employment, mixed use, low income populations. So with the exception of, you have Rathdrum popping out to the north, and then to the west, you have the Cortera specific area, as well as in 2040, you'll really see it pop. where the prairie pops as well as the west. So we're really analyzing, okay, do we need a route that goes along, whether it be Highway 41 or Hutter? It might be a more reasonable and thoughtful route. So those are the kinds of things that we're thinking about. Let's see. So this is a zoomed in version of it. If you don't recognize it, it's the Atlas Mill District and Riverstone. So Riverstone is right here. You can see the big pond. And then you'll notice that when all of this development in Atlas is going to be popping, it's popping up now. Well, and I sit on the Ignite CEA board too, and we're looking at possibly creating some more affordable housing options in that district. So, and we also have the Whitewater lower income developments out here in Riverstone. So we want to make sure that we're hitting all of those new developments that are coming online and making sure that transit is accessible to all. And this is the downtown core. And you can see that just north of 90 there, it doesn't really, it hits somewhat on, I believe that's the B route, but to the east there, it's kind of desolate. And so how do we make it more accessible to those areas, which really does bring me to the new, so with all of this, their CityLink has received federal funding from FTA to build an integrated mobility system. And so I'm not sure if any of you are aware of, you can go online and you can go to passiogo.com and you type in or you choose your system. It just, as long as you allow your location, it will automatically populate. And you can provide, it will basically do a Google search of how to get to your next route. So for example, it shows you in real-time action where the buses are at currently and how long they will get to your next stop. So for example, this morning I clicked on Locust and the bus was right here just by Walnut on 4th Street, and it says that it will be 3 to 4 minutes away. And then you can push this little icon, the little guy waving, pick me up. And so you pick, and then that bus driver knows that you're there. Because sometimes, and this is another thing that we're looking at with the bus stops, as you all probably are aware of, this signage is horrible. In my opinion, it's really hard to see where the bus stops are located. And so, and then also the bus drivers, if they don't see somebody there, they will just kind of drive right by. And so you can push this little guy, it alerts the driver that there are people at that stop. And then if you wanted to basically navigate to a place, you can click from, so if you are getting picked up at Locust, you can click the directional navigation here. And I don't know if you can see my cursor, but, and then you can run a route. So for example, I clicked on 15th Street. I want to get to 15th Street. How do I get there? And this integrated mobility app, it not only provides you the bus route option, but then it also gets into, okay, then you take a bike or you can take an Uber from there, or it integrates all mobility. So, so when you click on that and then you click on the start navigation in Google Maps, and then it gives you the directions, just like you would if you were just in Google Maps in general. So it's a nifty little tool. And the great thing about this, from my perspective and from our analysis, is that it's collecting data as people are inputting where they're going, what they're doing. And then we can really make these routes even more efficient, because then we could really see where people are going, the their destinations and the like. So that's really, I was excited about it because I'm like, well, we need more data to put, I mean, we have the existing route, we have the essentials, population, employment, and whatnot, but using mobile data is really key to be able to see where the origin and destinations are, and then we can really make the system even more efficient. And we want to make sure that we're hitting the service providers. So as part of this project, the CityLink and all systems, transit systems, they all require a human service plan. And so what that means is how does it integrate with the service providers? And so we're throwing that on top of this project too, to not only do the bus stop evaluations and the route assessments, but also meet with employers, meet with service providers. And that's why we're doing the ride-alongs, to make sure that we're hitting all of these aspects, making sure that everybody's involved, that we're not just looking at it from one lens. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to ask you if you have any questions or if you want me to back up on any slides so that we can talk about them.
Any questions for Alivia?
Hi, I have a question. And I know you're probably really tired of hearing this, but working with the homeless and working with low-income populations, is there any plan at all to ever get a bus route back to the food bank, the Coeur d'Alene Food Bank? Even if it was just limited, like, a couple times a week. And then the other question would be for the Alice population is having routes that run later at night so that people that work can go from work or they can get shopping after work.
Yeah.
And I know that's a financial consideration that's always been a problem.
Both great points. So yes, we are analyzing all of that. And part of this is the financial part of it. And so we just need funding, because right now, obviously, CityLink is free, and they want to keep it free. I mean, really, all public transportation runs in the red. There's no public transportation system, transit system in the country. There's very few that actually operate in the black. So it is a subsidized, and unfortunately in Idaho, that doesn't really fly very well. So, but with that being said, we're helping educate these elected officials to help them understand that, and this is where the cost allocation model comes in. So we will be able to, for example, put in that bus route up to Tesh as well as the food bank, and to see okay, what would they cost? What would be the additional cost? And what would be the demand? And we put the dollars to it. And then that way we can go to city council, we could go to the county, and we could ask specifically, especially if it's, for example, I'm going to use the Post Falls Food Bank because some of the municipalities don't allocate funds to CityLink, and while others do. And so this cost allocation model really helps put things in perspective with, okay, for example, the city of Hayden or Post Falls, if there's a huge demand for a new route and the constituents are asking for it, then we could say, this is the amount, and Post Falls, you could put in this amount because your constituents want it, versus the city of Coeur d'Alene subsidizing Post Falls and vice versa. But having that said, and another great example is over in Riverbend. So we can put together the numbers to figure out, okay, what would be the cost of this to bring in this new route? And the city of Post Falls, are you willing to foot that bill, or half of it, or whatever? So to your point, yes, we're looking at all of those demand those service provider or service type, all the food banks, all of the main distribution centers to be able to really see if it's a viable option. Because we still have to think about headway too, to make sure, okay, it's already an hour. Do we
Right.
put out another bus? Can we afford to do that? And can the municipalities help with that funding?
So this is Paula Lyon with the Coeur d'Alene School District and the McKinney-Vento liaison. I've taken James Kerb's place, just so you all know James is retired.
Oh,
So McKinney-Vento means homeless, our homeless population. And so by law, we are required to bus our homeless children to their home schools, understanding that they're transient. So we try to keep them in the same homeschool. And I was just on a call for an hour yesterday with all the Spokane McKinney-Vento coordinators and saw that, oh my gosh, they have a whole host of, if our buses, if the buses, because buses take kids back and forth between school districts, and we were talking about how to split that cost. But so it kind of, they have all these other vendors and other ways of getting kids to and from that the Coeur d'Alene School District has not identified. But a typical example is I have a student, like, I mean, I would need you, it would be nice if you guys consider adding into your bus routes if you really want to hit our homeless population, homeless under the federal definition of homeless is like, for example, Safe Passage, Angel Arms. I've got a kid I need to get from 10th Street over to Lake City High School, but he has to walk 2 miles
wow.
over to Hubbard to take the bus to Lake City. So incorporating perhaps the high schools and the middle schools, you know, and all of our, as Donna said, our shelters, and
Mhm.
making sure that it's available to our shelters and our sheltered housing areas to at least the high schools. Middle schools would be great. Um, I mean, I guess parents could ride the buses with their littles. We do a pretty good job on the littles, but there's some, this would be like one extenuating circumstances that I have is we can't accommodate, we just don't have enough bus drivers or enough routes. And so, boy, I mean, it never occurred to me to say, well, get on the bus. Can you take the
Mhm.
bus? And now I'm going to try your little Passio thing and see if I can get him. But will it run within school time? School starts at 7:30 at high schools and middle schools. So I guess that's something I guess I've identified a need for you is high schools, middle schools, certainly NIC for our college, our kids that dual enroll or go to college there as well, and all of the shelters, all the shelter housing.
I like that, Paula, because I've thought the same thing, and especially with the schools. So one thing as you were speaking, I was thinking what would be really great is so I received, so Chris Clem ended up giving me a list of all of the this group, a huge Alice provider list, I guess you would call it, as well as St. Vinny's list. And then I added to it from the North Idaho Service Directory, I think it was called. Anyways, we have a lot of resources, but I think we need to prioritize. And so what I would like to do, if you all are willing and able, to provide you with a list, and then you prioritize that list. That way we can help prioritize that for CityLink as well as the county to make sure that we're hitting those really, really in need places. So maybe that could be a follow-up to this meeting.
So
Yeah,
Olivia, sorry, go ahead, Paula.
No, I'm done. I was just gonna say that'd be great.
Okay.
Starting.
So the Behavioral Health Board has to do a needs and gaps assessment every year. And and then they set out goals and objectives. And one of the major goals this year is to try to figure out transportation issues. So I would love to contact you again and talk more about that once this gets some legs behind it.
Yes.
CAP also did a community assessment recently, and transportation again was one of the major things that came up. So it's like it's on everybody's in front of their task list right now.
That's great.
And I think it was just a matter of accessibility, of knowing who to contact at CityLink to talk about some of these things that are coming up. But I would love to have you get, involved in some of these conversations.
Yes. I would
Yeah, I
love
mean,
that.
accessibility is the number one thing. We just beat our heads. We can have all the programs in the world available to our families, but if they can't access them because they don't have transportation, and never until yesterday and today have I said, get on the bus. You can go to back to school night. You can take your kid to back to school night on the bus, or you can take your kid to school by getting on the bus. And that, so the huge, you guys could play, if we all work together, could play a really vital role in, helping our families to show up. We just, they don't show up. And so maybe we can, guide them in the direction of get on the bus. It's free. You can show up. You can be there.
Vic, could you put your email in the chat?
Yeah, can you see this? It says questions and it says my name, Chris and Chad.
Oh.
You can't see that?
Yeah.
Oh, you can. Or you can't?
Yeah, I can see it.
To piggyback a little bit on the school district stuff, I recently took on a foster youth, and prior to me taking that youth on, they were walking miles to work and home because they were in a shelter situation, and then miles home at 11 o'clock at night. So back to that job situation and the later busing, these individuals who are aging out of foster care are trying to become independent. They don't have a choice. And so if most of them don't drive, they don't have funding, enough funding to get even a little scooter, because they're so expensive. And so the transportation in that later time period is so critical to their independence at all. So I just wanted to mention that.
I double back on that. We've got a lot of unaccompanied youth. They're not in foster care and they don't have guardians. They're couch surfing. They all work to support themselves. And, short of getting on bikes and skateboards, that is not an option. They don't have a lot of options to get to and from work and school.
So I just wanted to ask about the west part of Post Falls out by Riverbend. We talked briefly about that. And I know that with the workforce training being over there, as well as all the apartment buildings that are over there that offer low income and senior housing. I know at one point there was a CityLink route that went all the way to Cabela's.
Yep.
And then it was discontinued. However, that area out there is continuing to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I see on all of your records that it is growing at the same rate, if not more than the Rathdrum when it comes to the saturation of when the workforce was shown in 2040. And my question is, how do we get that route back on Post Falls? What would it take to do that, working with the city of Post Falls or with any of the agencies that aren't nonprofits, that are like NIC, that would stand to benefit from that for the people at that location, as well as the people in the apartments surrounding that area for employment? And my second question or second comment was that the Post Falls Food Bank, we had a stop at Post and 3rd Street, but we have since moved from that location. So it does not serve us anymore. We are using the senior center one that's the stop right before it. So that stop that's sitting there is actually not servicing any nonprofit or anybody else. So that's one you could remove off of your list, even right now, because it's not being utilized for any business or anybody there.
What was that? Post and what was it?
Post and 3rd.
Post and 3rd.
Yeah, so we located to the senior center building right down the street, so we're utilizing that one. So we are the senior center and the food bank all in one. So that other stop that we had right there at 415 East 3rd is not being used anymore.
Okay.
I mean, it's not using us. It's not benefiting an Alice family location or a nonprofit or a school or anything like that. It's probably one that, because City Hall is so close on the other side, you could probably eliminate that and save some time, I would think.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
yeah, about the West Corridor, I know that's something we talked about. I was on the committee years ago, and I know, a matter of fact, I was the one that got our stop at the food bank at Post Falls, but I understand the logistics of getting the city to chip in because it benefits them as well. And I just am curious how we would get that western region back on that map. There's a lot of seniors in Camelot Estates and in the Montrose housing that is between the current route and the one that's showing right now. So I'm just curious, how do we get that back on the map?
Yeah, we did a presentation to the city of Post Falls, the city council, and they also asked about that. And we mentioned that there used to be a route there, but then they had to, because of funding, had to dismantle it. But it is in the conversation, and it's definitely on the radar. I would say the biggest thing is after we do this assessment, and we can bring you back in, or you can even go to city council and ask for those types of requests, because I think that's the biggest thing, is just making sure that city council members know that that's a priority to businesses, services, as well as the population.
With that stopover in Riverbend that we used to have also, it was over by Cabela's, which made some of our students have to walk over from there over to us, which was actually a dangerous, having under the highway on the bridge and things. So definitely we would like to be in the conversation so we can add that, but over on this side as well, because they were walking in the winter at dark from Cabela's stop over. So, well, I guess it was at the truck stop actually, but
oh, right. Yeah, I do have to say that is the Riverbend area is definitely probably the #1 priority as to adding another line. So I mean, I don't want to talk too soon, but that's definitely, I mean, it just makes the most sense.
and if we can help with surveying students or anything, let us know.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, would public comment help?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think so. And what I could do is next time we present to the city council, I could send a note out to you all and let you know. And then that way you could be at the meeting and supporting it.
Any other questions for Olivia?
If you all don't mind, I'd love to return for a second to the shelters and public school locations. This whole thing is fascinating to me. I'm learning so much today during our call. Great topic. Is it really true that some of aren't there, so there are not, to summarize, there are not bus stops at each shelter, is my first question, and there are not bus stops at each high school?
Well, there's a bus stop about 2 blocks away from the St. Vincent shelters. At least the ones in Coeur d'Alene. I mean, there's lots of other housing programs for people that have left the shelters that are in their own housing now. That is not.
That would need stops, okay? And not every high school. And so then if not every high school has a stop for CityLink, would the school buses, apparently what I'm hearing, school buses don't serve those routes?
We do. It's just that there's exceptions where kids are not going to the school that they're zoned to go to because they've moved, because they're transitional. And so we have to set up special routes. But, once we have 300-400 kids, you can't, it just gets we don't have enough bus drivers or enough resources to do some of these very unique routes. And we are not like Spokane. We don't do Uber. We don't do Lyft. We don't have Hop, Skip, Drive and all these other third-party vendors, or at least the school district has not explored that. I'm speaking as the McKinney-Vento quarter. I've not even talked to our transportation people, but the light bulbs just went on because I too was a former consultant, and it's like, wow, why am I not telling these people to get on the bus if the bus routes are there? So, you know, I would love to get this kid from 10th Street, 10th Place, which is that's our Angel Arms facility, and I don't know if there's a bus stop there. I would be curious to know where the nearest bus stop is. I'm trying to do this Passio thing, but it's not working at this sec. I'm not savvy enough or something, but to see how I can get that kid to high school. But is it going to get him there by 7:30 in the morning?
Right.
You know, after school, we've got a lot more latitude to work their way home, but in the morning, you know, attendance is critical for our students and their success. So attendance to both high schools and Venture, you know, would be really a high priority for us.
But
And I know that in Post Falls, the bus route goes right between the two middle schools, and actually goes within walking distance of the high school. So they did a really good job, in my opinion, of getting the route to hit all the adequate places in Post Falls, you know, with the exception of the West, which is just recently became such a growth situation. But they, yeah, for us, and it goes right by the warming shelter and the library and pretty much anywhere you'd want to go. So I thought they did a really good job of that in Post Falls anyway. Yeah.
And yeah, we do bus kids back and forth to Post Falls. And again, that can be a strain, and it's, you know, a huge cost. I mean, it's a lot of cost, but I mean, if there's a free route, I mean, if there's another option, you know, we should at least have that in our back pocket to look at if that's an option to bus the kid, you know, to have them use public transportation.
Yeah, I agree.
so otherwise, though, there is regular transportation provided by the schools for between
Absolutely.
schools and
Except-
shelters and all that kind of thing.
Well, no, that's where I said it gets complicated. We can't, when they're unique and we're busing them back to their home school, which may not be the school that they're
Right.
living in or zoned to,
Yeah.
because that's where it gets complicated.
Right, but so is there a majority that is well served, and then there is a minority that is not well served? Is that
correct?
okay?
So I'll tell you guys a really interesting situation that happened with us with St. Vinny's. And Donna, you may remember this during the last assessment that we did with CAP. We were discussing transportation and how it ends at 6:30 on the CityLink bus, and how because the meals over at the shelter in Coeur d'Alene were at a certain time, the Post Falls homeless folks and families that were going over there couldn't get back on the bus because of the time the route ran. And so the gals over at St. Vinny's had a great idea to move the meal up ahead a little bit. So after the meal was over and they were taking people by shuttle over to the warming center, they were able to shift those folks to ride CityLink to the warming shelter after the meal and not have to use a shuttle anymore. So what that did was do some wraparound services also, but it kind of was a great way to utilize the transportation system more efficiently, and also help St. Vinny's be able to free up shuttles for what they may need. And so it worked out really, really well. And again, it was one of those epiphany moments, like, wow, you know, and they caught on to that, and it was super great. And I think if more of us, you know, had those moments, if we're able to, if there's a wraparound service close to you, it might be a good place to do a stop in between the two kind of situation, perhaps, you know, just throwing that out there. But that was a really cool story that we were able to just in a conversation have that happen the way that it did and utilize those services so much more efficiently for everybody, you know.
Yeah, same day. Came back
Yeah.
from the meeting and we changed the meal time.
Same day. It was perfect. I mean, it really was a great way of all these nonprofits working together and utilizing resources that neither one of us, we were like, wait a minute, what?
That's awesome.
One thing I haven't heard mentioned yet is Sundays. You know, a lot of Alice lower income people have to work on Sundays and the buses don't run.
Good point. One thing that I wanted to bring up that Olivia, you're probably aware of, but Find Help Idaho is a resource directory and it has a map feature. So when you search for specific resources, you can switch to the map view and it'll pinpoint them. It might be handy to have, which is a transition to a resource to everyone on this call. If your service is not listed or if you haven't claimed it yet, go to findhelpidaho.org and take a look at that. It was formerly North Idaho Connections, but it was the same system that was statewide. And Kootenai Health had been managing North Idaho Connections and they partnered with the United Ways of Idaho. So now it's a statewide resource directory and there's no cost to providers to use it. And it does have kind of handoff and case management through privacy screenings for the clients. So if you are working with a client, you can suggest a service to them via text or email, and it'll track that if they followed up or not. So I encourage you to take a look at that and list things if you'd like. Okay, so we have 8 minutes left. Guess we can start going around the room unless Olivia, you have any other final closing thoughts?
No, this has been great. Thank you all for your input. And I would love to follow up with this group because this is really important information. You are on the ground and that's what we need.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Olivia. It was a great presentation, obviously very engaging and something that directly impacts everything that everyone on this call does. So a little virtual round of applause from everybody. I'm sure that was a standing ovation. Okay, so let's go around the room. Anybody have any good news to share or events coming up or anything like that?
I do.
Okay, go Donna.
All right, North Idaho Career Fair will be at the library on September 24th. That's being put on by Equus. That's from 1 to 4. Of course, support coming right up on October 3rd at the fairgrounds. Tickets are on sale now. Just go to our website. Hayden Chamber Business Fair will be 9/18. That's coming right up too. That's at Peak Fitness in Hayden from 3 to 6. NAMI Idaho is having a rummage sale. We're going to have some cool stuff there, furniture and a bake sale as well. That is on 9/21 and that will be at the Help Center parking lot, St. Vincent's Help Center parking lot. Venture Academy is having the Venture Resource Fair. That will be on October 16th, 3 to 6. And then there will be a recovery rally on 9/21. And that'll be at City Park. If I don't have a lot of details on that, but Eric Presley from the Kootenai Recovery and Community Center is spearheading that. So if you have any questions, you can contact Eric. And that's what I got.
Awesome. KJ.
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to remind everybody that there's 1 week for the building resilience training. We have 18 tickets left. So jump on today. It's $10. That includes a meal and a free book, like a nice book. It's 9 to 3:30 next Friday. And basically the short version is in the morning, it's training on what's happened to our vulnerable populations. So that includes poverty, ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and child abuse and neglect. And then we spend 2/3 of the day learning common languages of how to help those that we serve, including motivational interviewing, protective factors, trust-based relational intervention, science positivity. And we have 5 hands-on activities to keep things so you're not just watching people talk all day, some practical experiences. And then we end with trauma stewardship for helpers and mindfulness. And it's 4.5 CEUs. So if you're looking for some CEUs, it's a great venue. It's close, NIC, includes a good lunch with dairy option or dietary options. So I put the link in the chat box, and I hope to see some of you if you haven't already registered. Thank you. Any questions?
Awesome. Thank you, KJ. Who else?
I have something.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So the Third Avenue Marketplace is doing a grand opening on October 3rd. If anyone wants to come see our market and the new senior citizens building that we have and our programs that we're offering, it is from 4 to 6. We have swag, and I'm sure we'll have snacks, and it'd be great to see everybody there just to kind of get an idea of what we do. And then also, I always love to meet more partners, so I have more resources in my back pocket. So feel free to join us. It's not tickets. You just show up and join us.
Awesome. Thank you, Lori. Colleen has her hand raised.
Thank you. I was just going to let everyone know that we have our 30th anniversary out at the Workforce Training Center, October 7th. So everyone's invited, and you know anybody that would like to learn more about what we do out here at Workforce with all the apprenticeships and programs we have. It'll be from 3 to 5 p.m. October 7th, just at our facility, and we'll have speakers and snacks and all, just kind of introducing people to all of the opportunities at Workforce.
Awesome. All right. Anybody else?
I have one quick update for our Kinship Day. We actually have a change of venue. We found that Fostering Idaho was doing an event scheduled for the same date and time. So we joined forces with them, and it will now be at Bora Elementary School. Prizes, games, snacks, information tables. Everybody is welcome, and would love to see familiar faces there as well. And I will send out the flyer to Chris, the updated flyer for him to share.
Awesome. All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have something. Next month is Disability Employment Awareness Month. And so I'd just like to bring, we're going to have a couple classes from the Idaho Commission on Human Rights, and I'll get those posted and shared. And then also Unity Day, which is our bullying prevention day. It will be in the schools on October 16th, distributing to our treats and things in awareness to our mental health providers, SROs, counselors, etc. On that day. And if you know anybody that wants to help with that, it's a Kootenai County wide. So we do 4 school districts, and it's over 400 like cinnamon rolls and coffee and things like that. So we're looking for people who work or are close to those locations that can pick up deliveries. So keep that in mind.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other shares? Okay, so thank you all for being here. I do have one final share, but I'm going to stop the recording